you think in today's game it's necessary to have a big three to win a championship?
I don't think it's necessary. It's definitely a model that people can follow. It's always taken talent to win championships.
We are now about 2 weeks in the NBA free agency, and most teams have kind of rounded into form. There's still going to be some moves here and there, but we have a good idea of what teams are going to look like going into the 2024-2025 season. Other than watching Bronny James highlights in Summer League and Olympic basketball, there's not a whole lot going on for basketball fans right now. So today, I thought I'd rank all 30 big threes in the NBA. Now, I know every team doesn't have a big three. We're just going to be ranking the 3 best players on every team, all the way from 30 to number 1. This is going to be in a very opinionated list, so let me know down in the comments where you agree and where you disagree with the rankings. I always enjoy reading your guys' comments and seeing you tell me that I'm wrong on certain takes or that I sound like Joe Biden when he takes too much cold medicine.
Look.
To the list now. At number 30, I have the Brooklyn Nets with Cam Johnson, Cam Thomas, and Nick Claxton. So it's no secret the Nets are tanking this year. They traded away Mikal Bridges, rebuilding. They may even trade 1 or 2 of these guys throughout the season. 29, the Washington Wizards, Jordan Poole, Malcolm Brogdon, and Kyle Kuzma. So honestly, I thought the Jordan Poole experience would go better than it did last year. Obviously, things didn't go Washington's way. Now they bring in a veteran like Malcolm Brogdon, who can hopefully provide a calming presence to that team and help develop some of their young players. 28, the Utah Jazz with Lauri Markkanen, Jordan Clarkson, and Colin Sexton. So obviously, Lauri's really good. He's played awesome for the Jazz the last 2 years. There's been rumors the past few weeks that they might trade him, and a lot of people don't know where the Jazz are going. Are they going to try to blow this up and keep rebuilding over the next few years? Because honestly, they're not that far off from becoming contenders. But if your second and third best players are Colin Sexton and Jordan Clarkson, those guys are more like 6 men than actual like stars to build a team around. Number 27, the Portland Trailblazers with Jeremy Grant, Anthony Simons, and DeAndre Ayton. It was tough picking the top 3 players for the Blazers. They have some young players that can crack into basically the top of the team with guys like Shaedon Sharpe, Scoot Henderson, and Donovan Clingan. So it'll be interesting to see how the season goes for the Blazers. But these 3 guys that I named are probably more of like third options rather than 1s or 2s if you're trying to be a good team. 26, the Toronto Raptors with Scotty Barnes, RJ Barrett, and Emmanuel Quickley. So nothing against these 3 guys. I actually like them as players. But combined, they're owed $493 million on the remaining of the contracts for the 3 of them combined. And that is just way too much money for the 26th best big 3 in the NBA. 25, the Chicago Bulls with Zach LaVine, Kobe White, and Nick Vucevic. So the Bulls somewhat blew it up this offseason, getting rid of DeRozan and Caruso. They didn't get a whole lot back, although they did get Josh Giddey. I didn't put him in the top 3, but he's definitely going to be an important piece for them. Kobe White had an awesome year last year, and then apparently they tried to trade Zach LaVine and couldn't really get anything back. He probably has negative trade value just because of his contract at this point. Number 24, the Houston Rockets with Jalen Green, Alperen Sengun, and Fred VanVleet. So the Rockets are a lot better than the 24th best team in the league, and there's so many good players on this roster, but there are just questions about their top guys. They played better without Sengun last year. Jalen Green was awesome towards the end of the year, but he's definitely been up and down in those first few years. And Fred VanVleet just seems like a temporary player for them, used to help teach those younger guys on the roster. 23, the Detroit Pistons with Cade Cunningham, Tobias Harris, and Jaden Ivey. So last year obviously did not go well for the Pistons. I'm still a believer in Cade Cunningham. I've seen him play a lot, watched a lot of Pistons on the count that I live in Michigan. And Cade's really good. I believe he's going to be a good player in this league. They just need a good team around him. And Jaden Ivey, for whatever reason, was in Monty Williams' doghouse. Hopefully now under Bickerstaff, he gets a bigger role and can succeed some more this year. And Tobias Harris, in Philly, we definitely were hard on him last year, but coming in as a veteran, maybe third option on the team, not a bad spot for him. 22, the Atlanta Hawks with Trae Young, Jalen Johnson, and Zachary Riza-Shea. So Riza-Shea is the #1 pick, but not a whole lot of hype on him. He'll probably be more of a role player, at least those first few years while he's developing in Atlanta. Trae Young's still going to put up huge numbers, especially now with DeJounte Murray gone. And Jalen Johnson looked really good last year, like he improved a lot, and the Hawks just played a lot better when he was in the lineup. 1. The Charlotte Hornets with LaMelo Ball, Brandon Miller, and Miles Bridges. Honestly, I was thinking about putting the Hornets higher on this list, but then I thought they're the Hornets and they sucked last year. I can't. But I have heard some people saying that they're actually going to be pretty good this year and could be a playoff team in the East. And if LaMelo stays healthy and can get back to kind of his all-star level and Brandon Miller still continues to improve, I could actually see that happening. Number 20, the San Antonio Spurs with Victor Wembanyama, Chris Paul, and Devin Vassell. Wemby looked even better than expected his rookie year, which is crazy with how high the expectations were for him. And now they bring in Chris Paul, who's not what he once was, but can still set up Wembanyama a lot better than he was by his point guards last year. So a good addition there. And then Devin Vassell is an underrated player, just a good shooter, a good guy to have on your team. Number 19, the Golden State Warriors with Steph Curry, Draymond Green, and Jonathan Kuminga. The Warriors have had some of the best big threes of the past decade, but now with Klay Thompson leaving, it breaks up that long tenured run of Steph Curry, Draymond Green, Klay Thompson. Threw Kuminga in there as he's been getting better the past few years, but this Warriors team doesn't seem like they're going to make the playoffs, probably headed towards the play-in or potentially just missing out. Number 18, the Orlando Magic with Paulo Banchero, Franz Wagner, and Jalen Suggs. I was liking the direction the Magic were going with until they signed Franz Wagner to that max extension. I think it was around 5 years, $224 million. That's just too much money. It seems like nowadays everyone wants to give their guy the max just to make sure they're happy and that agents aren't upset, the player's not upset, and everything's all good. But that's too much for Franz, and they could have added an addition piece. They were talking about maybe Paul George coming here in the offseason. They did add KCP, but that extension is going to hinder them from adding a big piece to this team in the years to come. Number 17, the Los Angeles Clippers with Kawhi Leonard, James Harden, and Norman Powell. Russell Westbrook's still on this team and could get a bigger role, but there are reports that he could be traded maybe to Denver. Kawhi just withdrawed from Team USA about 2 days ago at the time I'm filming this. So, I mean, you can't really count on him. I love Kawhi when he plays, but he's the most untrustworthy superstar out there. James Harden's probably on that list somewhere. Norman Powell, good role player, but probably not on a big three on a championship team. 16, the New Orleans Pelicans with Zion Williamson, Brandon Ingram, and DeJounte Murray. At the end of last season, it seemed like a foregone conclusion that Brandon Ingram wouldn't be back with this team, but we're already halfway through July and he's still on the roster. They brought in DeJounte Murray, who should be a nice addition, just giving them another guard to handle the ball at the end of games. The Pelicans were really bad in late game scenarios last year. Number 15, the Indiana Pacers with Tyrese Halliburton, Pascal Siakam, and Miles Turner. Halliburton looked like one of the best players in the NBA the first half of the year. Then he got hurt, and then he kind of turned it back on in the playoffs. Siakam looks like a reliable number 2. You just wonder how far they're going to go with those two guys as their best players compared to some of the other teams in the East and the All-Stars on like the Celtics, 76ers, and Knicks. And then Miles Turner is the number 3 guy. I always really liked Miles Turner. Good shot blocker, can hit threes. Just not that all-star caliber level player. Just not that all-star caliber level player. 14, the Cleveland Cavaliers with Donovan Mitchell, Darius Garland, and Evan Mobley. Mitchell may be the most underrated superstar in the league now. I've never been a huge fan of his, but just watching him in those like few playoff games he played against Boston in that first round series, the guy's good and he can potentially be the best player on a championship team. If Jason Tatum can, then why not Donovan Mitchell? Garland and Mobley still both really young. Not giving up on them. They could definitely get better as next season moves on. 13, the Miami Heat with Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo, and Tyler Hero. The Heat are another kind of hard team to gauge, and it's crazy that these three guys make up the 13th best big three. There's a lot of talent in the league now. Adebayo, one of the best centers, and Jimmy Butler, it's hard to put him on a scale between other NBA players just because he misses so much games during the regular season, but we've seen him do it in the postseason and show that he can be a top 10 player in this league. And then Tyler Hero, up and down depending on who you ask. The dude can score, and that's what he contributes to this big three. Well, the Oklahoma City Thunder with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Jalen Williams, and Chet Holmgren. So this is just ranking big threes. We're not going through full team power rankings because the Thunder, they're probably a top 3 team in the NBA. I know they lost in the semifinals in the West last year, but they're going to come in with more experience, a really young team with a bunch of assets they could potentially flip to get another good player on this roster. 11, the Memphis Grizzlies with Ja Morant, Jaren Jackson Jr., and Desmond Bane. The Grizzlies had the year from hell last year, no doubt, and they seemed to fall off the map, be written off as one of those teams at the bottom of the West standings, but now they're coming back full strength. Ja Morant was just released on restricted basketball activities, and these are 3 potentially all-star caliber guys. Morant's top 10 guy in the league when healthy. Triple J was Defensive Player of the Year, and Desmond Bane was averaging 25 points per game for a while last year. So this is a legit big three. 11 honestly seems too low. I may have put them too low on this list, but you just got to see what they are now that they're all back at full strength. And the Sacramento Kings with De'Aaron Fox, Domantas Sabonis, and DeMar DeRozan. The Kings were one of the teams that made a big splash in free agency, going with a sign-and trade to bring in DeMar DeRozan. They have a great starting 5 now, or should I say like a closing 5 when you can put Malik Monk in that closing rotation. DeMar DeRozan, it'll be interesting to see how he fits with them. He's done a good job adjusting as he's moved along between Toronto, San Antonio, and Chicago. And De'Aaron Fox and Domantas Sabonis have that chemistry together already. Is one of the best 2-man games in the NBA. The Los Angeles Lakers with LeBron James, Anthony Davis, and Austin Reeves. LeBron and Davis are 2 top 15 guys in the league probably. The thing with that is they've been so bad in the regular season the last few years, considering they have 2 really good players on their roster. Reeves is a good third option, and he's shown flashes that he can be a good player. It really all relies on LeBron and Davis's health. Can they play 60, 70 games and actually give the Lakers a good record to have a chance in good seeding in the playoffs? Number 8, the Milwaukee Bucks with Giannis Antetokounmpo, Damian Lillard, and Chris Middleton. So talking about best player specifically, I have Giannis as the second best player in the world, and just because he's been injured the past couple postseasons, I think some people forget what he's capable of in those big moments. Damian Lillard, not great last year. There was an interview that Doc Rivers did that basically said that he didn't train at all because he was afraid of getting hurt when there was that trade speculation going. Maybe he'll be better in the next year. If not, it may be moving towards the twilight of his career at that point. And then Chris Middleton, I know he's always hurt and he seems a lot older than he actually is. But in those playoffs last year, he had some flashes of that 2021 Chris Middleton that helped them win the title. Number 7, the Dallas Mavericks with Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving, and PJ Washington. Some may say I should have put Klay Thompson in this big three, but I just think PJ Washington is the better all-around player at this point, and he gelled really well with their top 2 guys when he got traded there last year. Luka's a top 5 guy in this league. Kyrie's an all-star caliber player. Plenty of talent on this, but that third guy, PJ Washington, as great as he was as a role player, does drag them down a little bit. Number 6, the Minnesota Timberwolves with Anthony Edwards, Karl Anthony Towns, and Rudy Gobert. When I initially had the Timberwolves this high, I had a thought to push them down a few notches, but I think oftentimes we think too much about offense, and this is just a big three of overall players. And these guys were great defensively. Gobert, Defensive Player of the Year. Anthony Edwards, a great 2-way player. And Karl Anthony Towns held up really well against Jokic in that Denver series. So I'm going to put the Timberwolves at number 6 on this list. Number 5, the team that they beat in that Western semifinals series, the Denver Nuggets, with Nikola Jokic, Jamal Murray, and Aaron Gordon. I know that kind of doesn't make sense the way the series went last year, but Jokic is too good, and Jamal Murray is just the perfect complement to play off of him. Aaron Gordon just needs to shoot the ball better, I feel like. He was left open a lot in some of the Nuggets games I watched last year, but overall, he's become a great player with Denver. They have the best player in the world and a great complement, so I can't have them any lower than number 5. Number 4, the New York Knicks with Jalen Brunson, Mikal Bridges, and Julius Randle. So the Knicks played without 2 of these 3 guys through the postseason and almost made it to the conference finals before all the injuries caught up to them. They have a really deep team overall. They may be one of the best teams in the NBA and can actually compete for a title. Jalen Brunson is just awesome as that primary ball handler that can create for himself and get his teammates looks and basically just run the offense through him. And now you bring back Randall. Hopefully he can gel with the other guys the way they were playing in the postseason. And Bridges should fit in perfectly, not just because of the Villanova connection, but because of the kind of player that he is. Number 3, the Phoenix Suns with Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, and Bradley Beal. So yes, the Suns got swept in the first round of the playoffs, so technically this Big 3 won 0 playoff games together last year or at any point together. But you have Devin Booker and Kevin Durant, who are 2 top 15 players in this league, however you want to make your list. And Bradley Beal, it was his first year getting to Phoenix. Obviously, there's going to be a learning curve, a new coach to bring in now with Budenholzer, see if anything changes. You know, I just respect KD and Devin Booker too much to have them anywhere lower. I know the success hasn't come, and that's just because the rest of their roster is absolutely terrible. If we're talking big threes only, they're up there with the best of them. I hate the way Phoenix has put together their team, mortgaging their future and signing a bunch of minimum players to fill out the roster. But just on these 3 guys alone, I think they deserve to stand at number 3. Number 2, the Philadelphia 76ers with Joel Embiid, Tyrese Maxey, and Paul George. So I'm a 76ers fan. If you want to call me biased in the comments, I won't mind. Embiid's got to show it on a big stage. I just feel bad for him because of the injuries he's had in the playoffs over the years. But I don't think anyone can deny it. Tyrese Maxey is a legit superstar at this point. And Paul George, you know, he has had playoff failures in the past, but that was always as a number 1 or number 2 option. Now he gets to be the number 3 in Philadelphia. If he averages 21 points next year, that's fine, because Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey will still get theirs. I really wanted to put them at number 1, but Philly just hasn't shown up in the postseason in the past few years. And Joel Embiid still needs to have his moment, really, before this team is elevated to the number 1 big 3 in the NBA. 1, the Boston Celtics with Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, and Drew Holiday. When I was initially going through and ordering this list, I think I had them around 4 or 5, and then I bumped them up 1 spot, bumped them up another spot, and then eventually said, okay, they should be number 1. The Celtics, it was basically those 6 guys that made the team go, and Peyton Pritchard, Sam Hauser had their moments too. So that's why I didn't initially think their big 3 would be the best. But Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, that's the best duo in the NBA. That, I think, is undeniable at this point based off what they did this past year. If this was a duo list, they would undoubtedly be number 1. And then Drew Holiday is a number 3 piece. I think, like I said with the Timberwolves, you got to factor in the defense. And this guy is just the ultimate glue guy, the ultimate defensive player. And I think any team in the NBA would take Drew Holiday as their 3rd best option any day. Also, if you're doing this list and taking the Celtics 4 through 6 players, Porzingis, Derek White, and Horford, they would be better than some of those first few teams we named. So Boston definitely has that stacked roster. They're going to be the favorites heading into next year as well. That's the list. Thanks for watching. Let me know down in the comments where you disagree. If you didn't completely hate listening to me blabber about basketball for the past however many minutes, please leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel. And see you next time.